All right, welcome into the show today. We're joined by the pitmaster of Q into 662, Mr. Dustin Davis. He comes to us out of Coldwater, Mississippi. Take some time, connect with him, see what he is cooking up. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram at QNDA662. Dustin, thanks for joining us, sir. How you doing?
Great, Kurt, man. I'm glad to get to be a part of this. I know we've been planning this for a while, and I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely. I love it. I love all things barbecue. And for our listeners, Dustin was another one of our really friendly neighbors down at the Pig Jig in Vienna, Georgia. We were blessed and to have some really cool neighbors around us. We had Dustin, we had Hog Addiction, we had the folks from
Boom Boom Q, Mike on them.
Boom Boom Q. That's right. That's right. So it was a really good contest, and just really kind of brings back what we talk about here a lot on the show, and that is the special barbecue family that exists out there. So that was pretty neat. But
it was, and that's one thing I tell everybody. It's when you get into the barbecue, you're going to make relationships and friendships that it's basically a second family. I mean, it really is. And it's some of the family that you probably wish could replace some of your actual family, as much fun as you have with them and appreciate them. So we've always enjoyed getting to go out of town, because when we do the local events, we're with each other all the time, and we get to build those long-term relationships with us. But when we do get to go to Georgia, or like we were finished the year up in Biloxi, and we get to meet new people like y'all. I mean, it ties those connections in and makes that web bigger, of people and, resources to know and new techniques to learn. I mean, that's what this is about.
That's exactly right. And we had our little corner over there. We were representing Deep South Smokers pretty well, I think.
We was.
So that was pretty neat. But
we might have to see if we can't get them involved with a little sponsorship or something next year on the corner over there. Put Deep South Corner or something like that.
That's exactly right. Well, I think that's absolutely a possibility. So, but one thing we chat a lot about on the show is journey. I'm really interested in the barbecue journey and how people got to where they are today. So, curious from your standpoint, Dustin, how did all this come to be? What was this journey like for you into this crazy world of competition barbecue?
Well, I mean, with me, it stems back to when I was a kid. I mean, my dad was a barbecuer, and I mean, they used to get together and I mean, they done it, old school way. I mean, they'd dig a hole in the ground, cook a pig in the ground, or, put up some concrete blocks and, cooked whole hogs like that, or, make the old propane smoker. So, I mean, my barbecue goes back from a little kid. I've always enjoyed cooking because it does. Whether it's life, death, whatever, food has always brought people together. I mean, that's the thing about the South. It's, somebody dies, the first thing everybody does is start cooking for them. Take a dish over there, take them food. So, and that's my enjoyment. My wife and I, we love entertaining. We love having cookouts and just having people over, and that's where that stemmed from. I used to cook a little bit on competitions of KCBS stuff back in the day. Then was on the board of a barbecue festival over in Tupelo, Mississippi. That was a pretty good sized sanctioned KCBS event. And then life happened and just kind of got out of it, and just kind of put that to the side, and last year, my company, we decided to, they asked me to cook for Memphis in May. And man, I forgot how much I enjoyed it. We cooked last year at Memphis in May, placed 22nd out of 104 teams in ribs. And I was like, man, I enjoy this. And I said, I'm going back full board. And that's what I've done this year is really got back into it this year. This is my first year competing in probably 6, 7 years, 8 years. Yeah.
I love it. Memphis in May too, for our listeners, is considered, I would say, by many as the Super Bowl, if you will, of barbecue. It is the who's who of the barbecue world that descend on Memphis in May,
Yeah, yeah.
as the name implies, and it is a pretty cool event just to see all the teams out there and to even get in the top 25 in a field like that. I think is very, very, very respectable, and something to absolutely be proud of. And for our listeners too, we have a lot of folks on the show that do KCBS, that do GBA, that do FBA. We've recently started to have some folks on the show that are doing more MBN, Memphis Barbecue Network. And again, for our listeners, Memphis Barbecue Network is a little bit unique. It's a little bit different than those other sanctioning bodies. Biggest difference is that you'll see is the whole hog category, right? There's not, to my knowledge, there's not any other sanctioning bodies that are doing that as part of their competitions. And I think, with whole hog, it's really one of those things that a lot of people consider as the pinnacle, if you will, of barbecue. I mean, it really is kind of the one of the toughest things to do, I think, in barbecue. And I'm curious just to hear your thoughts on this, Dustin. What do you like? Why do you like cooking whole hog? Because it's hard, right?
Well, it's hard and it's easy. It's like anything else. Once you get, your system down, you get what works for you. And it's even whether it's ribs, because MBM, we're all about the pork. I mean, that is our judging categories. It's nothing but pork. Now, of course, we do ancillaries, and that's where all the other proteins will come in. But with whole hog, it's one of those that, to me, there's nothing more beautiful than you see, the hog laid out spatchcocked, or you cook it running style, and you just see that full entire piece of meat up there. And it's really a testament to a true pit master, because you can have your hams running hot and then your loin hadn't come up, but you're in fear of burning your hams. So you might have to go ice them down, or your shoulders might be outrunning your loins, and you got to know how to redirect the heat to where you don't end up with beef jerky for loins, or, things like that, and I think that's where it comes in. This year we stuck to shoulders and ribs, because I'm a one-man show,
Right.
So it's just me out there. But my plan is get back into it this year, get back in the swing of things, kind of get my procedure down on my ribs and butts to where I can just kind of, okay, I'm good on them. Probably in about 2 years, we're going to get back into the whole hog and start competing in all three categories. That way we can really go after the grand champion and, more events and everything. But, to me, ribs can be, to me, honestly, ribs is more challenging than a whole hog. It really is, because ribs, a whole hog, that's it. It's the whole hog. Ribs, you can do so many different ways. You can do dry. I mean, you've got people that do them hot and fast. You've got them do low and slow. You've got the ones that do the 3-2-1 wrap. I mean, you got some that don't even wrap, so everything's challenging to everybody in a different way to me.
Sure. That's right. And I think too, with ribs, are a little bit less forgiving than with the whole hog. With the whole hog, you got a little bit more room for error than you do with the ribs. And in fact, going back to how you and I connected, the winner of the pig jig won it with ribs,
Yep.
So that just goes to show you that you can, if you focus on, one or two turn-ins, you can absolutely win. And correct me if I'm wrong, but with MBN, you're actually able to, as long as you compete in one category, you can win the grand. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so the grand is done off the high, if I'm correct, the highest cumulative score, perfect score. So whoever gets that, like when we do the finals, because everybody gets the finals for the first, second, and third. So whoever gets that highest score out of that becomes the grand champion. So
That's right.
like with, Dustin and Amber over at Blue Collar Barbecue,
Mhm.
and I mean, they absolutely killed it this year. So they're actually Rib Team of the Year
Mhm.
for MBN, which we'll have our, we call it the Q Ball coming up first of the year. And that's where we do awards out for the top 20 teams in each category. But yeah, I mean, they had a perfect 600 down there. And so I mean, for that to be in ribs, I've had one perfect score one time, on ribs, and I got a full 360 and Bartlett this year and on ribs and everything else. And here's how crazy, just so listeners can understand how tight of a race this is on that competition there, Bartlett. I got a 360, which got me first place perfect score. Second place was 359.7.
Wow.
So first and second place was literally 0.3 of a point difference.
Yep.
So that, and I think that's what I like about the MBN scoring is, I mean, it's tight. I mean, the way those judges have to give their 10s out and their 9s and 9.5s, you've got to bring your A game. You really do.
That's exactly right. And here's another cool thing that I think is really unique about MBN is for the finals. If you make the finals during the blind turn-in phase, the judges are going to actually come to your cook site, and you're gonna have to present to them, whatever category you made the finals, and you're gonna have to present to them, and you're gonna have to educate them on how you cooked it, why you did what you did, how you seasoned it, what kind of hog it is. And so it really is, if you're not, it's not your typical, just turn in a box and then go to awards. I mean, you have to be, you got to sell yourself. You got to sell your cooking process, and it's done, right in person. So I think that's a really cool, and it was neat because, we had on our side of that, of the pig jig right down from us, we had Hank's Barbecue made finals in whole hog. And so to see the crowd gathering around there with the judges and the golf carts, and that was pretty cool just to see everybody looking on. And, you talk about working under pressure. I mean, I don't know, what other kind of situation there would be in the barbecue world where you have that much pressure. So I think that's a really cool component of
Well,
the
that's I think that's kind of what sets us apart from all of the other sanctions is we take it that one step further, because if you make finals, you're guaranteed first, second, or third. So I mean, I could go out there and just throw a rack of ribs down and be like, here you go, guys, I got third place, and walk away. But that's like Michael. And I don't know if you got with us with the Pabst beer thing. I think y'all had done left, but Boom Boom Q&M, we do a draw card after every competition. They'll have a case of Pabst beer out there, and everybody puts in $1, and we pop the top, and they've got the playing card numbers underneath the lid. So highest lid wins the pot, but that's kind of our little tradition there. And it's like we were talking about, within that hour, because, whole hog turn in is 9:45, pulled pork is 10:45, and ribs are 11:45. And they do their best to try to let you know within an hour, of if you made finals or not. And that hour, we're just pacing. I mean, we're just sitting there like, man, I made finals. And when you hear that first screaming, yelling, clapping, it's like, all right. And then you'll see them drive by, and it's like, and you get all pissed off, and you see your neighbor right next to you. And and it's like, okay, man, I need a few minutes to myself. Let me get up in my feels for a minute. And then we go over there and say, hey, what do you need? What do you need from me? And that's what it's about, because when we do that, I mean, man, we clean everything. We put the tablecloths out. We put bottles of water out for the judges. We wet little napkins, put in Ziploc bags so they can clean their fingers. Every bit. I mean, I put some of my rubs out so they can taste my rub. I put some of my sauce out, and I give them the whole story. Why am I using this smoker? Why do I like using that smoker? Why do I use this particular charcoal? Why do I use this wood? What meat am I using? What's my process? So it's a lot better understanding of, okay, Well, he didn't just come out here and blindly win this. This man knows what he's doing. And that's that showmanship. I think that's the biggest thing you're getting graded on, is that showmanship thing.
That's right.
That showmanship and that knowledge.
You're exactly right. And that showmanship, I think, is really, really important, obviously, for the finals and for the judges. I also think it's important when we talk about, the public, right? I mean, down in Vienna, there was a good amount of folks walking around, and the weather was great. So,
yes,
we were out there doing our pretty much everything just outside under the cover of a tent. And it was nice to be able to interact with them and answer questions. And I think that, to me, was another big difference that I noticed with the various sanctioning bodies that we compete in, because I'm real big on making sure that, we appeal, or we as a team bring value to the public, bring value to the organizers of these events. Because, as you well know, the sport of competitive barbecue over the last few years, maybe even longer than that, has been declining, unfortunately.
Yep, it has.
And I think one of the things that I've been very passionate about is making sure that we as teams are being great stewards of the sport, and taking time to interact with the public and answer questions. And I'm a straight shooter. If somebody asks me a question, I don't know the answer, I just tell them I don't know. Here's a great example. We had Marcio with Hog Addiction come over and give us some tips. And then we had, about an hour or two later, we had just some random people, just general public, come by, and they said, well, hey, why are you doing that? And I said, I don't know. He told me to do it. And you know what? He's 2019 whole hog Memphis and made champion. So I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to do it.
And you're right. I mean, it's just that it's you have to go into it humble and be willing to accept constructive criticism, and not think that, I'm the best cook there is in the cul-de-sac. Well, that's fine. That's in the cul-de-sac.
Right.
But, you've got people out here that literally spend thousands of dollars a weekend to do this, I mean, even myself, just with ribs and shoulders, I mean, I'm going to spend $500 a weekend,
right.
meats. You add whole hog and that, you're $1,000.
At least.
So, I mean, and that's the thing. And because I can tell you exactly, we could sit here and do our ribs exactly the same sauce, same rub, same everything. Yours are going to come out different than mine. It does not matter. It's going to. And I try things all the time. I want to let me hear how you do it, man. I'm a sponge. I want to absorb as much of that as I can, and I wish we did have more people, and COVID really hurt barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that, the year we lost on that really hurt, but we're hopefully we're coming back. I really hope it does.
So I'm curious to hear your take on this. And there's no perfect answer. Nobody has all the right answers, of course. But one thing that I've put a lot of thought into is how do we as teams, regardless of the sanctioning body, whether it's MBN, KCBS, GBA, FBA, doesn't matter. What can we do as teams to be more involve the public more and still compete? Now, I understand that there's certain times when you don't want to be talking to the public. I get that. Yeah. But that's part one of my question. And part two would be, how do we as teams stay relevant, right, to these event promoters, these event organizers, other than just saying, well, we're just going to cook in our trailer and we just want to set up and cook meat in the parking lot? Because I just personally, I don't think that's providing a whole lot of value to these event organizers. So really, it's a two-part question, right? So, like I said, one is, how do we involve the public more and still stay, at the top of our competition game? And then the second part is, how do we bring more value to the table for these organizers so that we can continue this sport, right?
One thing, I mean, just like with anything else, I mean, knowledge is the biggest thing. And I mean, promotion, and which it's so much easier to promote anything now with Facebook and things like that. And that's, even like with judges, that's one of the hardest things to get anymore. And I think that's probably one of the quickest and easiest areas to introduce people to barbecue is get involved in judge classes, whether it be a KCBS, MBN, GBN, whoever. I mean, you go do a class, you get involved, you start learning how all of this goes behind the scenes, and that lets them get involved and start getting an understanding of that. And then you start getting more people talking about barbecue. From a team standpoint, I think a lot of people, I think you get what we would call the weekend warriors, the guys that go out and just do it every now and then. I think it's gotten to where now a lot of them get intimidated when they pull up because, like you saw my rig. I mean, you see something like that pulling up, it's like, oh crap, look at Marcio's rig,
Right.
I mean, you get some of these guys, but when you see a 25, 30-foot trailer pulling up with, team name on it and, like Marcio, I mean, he rolls out 3 Old Hickory smokers. I mean, I only brought my Deep South with me that weekend, but, I'll switch out from Old Hickory to Deep South to the backwoods. And, you start looking at guys that's got $10, $15, $20,000 worth of smokers and then a $30,000 trailer. I think they just get intimidated. And I think that's where us as team members, just like with Marcio done with you, of going over just to talk to you. Like, hey, man, how are you doing this? And saying, look, man, here's what we do. I ain't trying to tell you how to do it, but this is how we do, suggest this. And breaking that, I guess you could say, tension, and welcoming someone in and bringing them in a part of the group, bringing them in that circle and being like, look, man, you can come out here with a Weber kettle and compete just as good as we do. We just do this because we don't want to be uncomfortable out here. I want air conditioning in my trailer. I want heat. I want somewhere to be able to lay down and take a nap, and I think that's one of the biggest things is that. And, a buddy of mine up here at Memphis Barbecue, like we were talking about, of trying to get some teams together and, like doing just some local classes, like guys coming out like, hey, here's how the big boys cook. Here's how the professionals cook. It's not that hard, guys. I mean, you can come out here and do it as well. So I think it's just knowledge and building those relationships. That's the biggest thing that we can bridge that. And then, as far as bringing the numbers up, I think it's a lot of educating the young, getting them involved in this. That's what's going to replace, because I mean, a lot of the old timers are getting out of it.
Right.
Yeah. And we need the younger ones coming up to start learning this stuff.
That's exactly right. I'd love to see the MBN, GBA, even the FBA. I'd love to see those sanctioning bodies start offering some kids Q, competitions as well. I'm biased. I have 2 young boys. They love that stuff. I mean, they when they get their name called to go on stage, it doesn't matter if it's 9th place or first place. They absolutely love it.
Yeah. And that's where me and my son, we're going to Arkansas next weekend to do a state competition.
Mm-hmm.
And the SCA is really good about having the kids, whether it's the pork chop or, and I think the cook, I think it's 15 and older, or 15. You got to be younger than 15 to still compete in the kids, but I think over 13 they can compete in the adults. I think it is. But me and him's going to go next weekend and do state competition. But that's one thing SCA is big on, is trying to bring the kids in, and I think they've already honed in on that's their future. Those are going to be the ones that's going to keep these events going.
That's exactly right.
And one of the things I do like about, like with the MBN, and this is circle back up on that other question, like for the promoters, MBN gets associated with like a lot of festivals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we do like you've got the Water Valley Festival every year, and it's a whole arts and craft festival in the middle of town.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one we done in Bolivar, you know, like you go to Bolivar, they've got $25,000 in prizes there. You know, they done a chicken challenge this year. First place walked away with almost $1,200 for the chicken challenge. You know,
Wow.
I mean, and that's an ancillary. So that's one of the things they are providing to us, going to these sponsors to get. And then that's where us as teams, you know, we've got to start bringing new people in to help them, because that helps their town. You know, we come in there, we're going out to dinner, we're buying gas when we get there, we're buying ice, buying drinks, buying groceries, you know, hotels, things like that. And that's boosting that area's economy. And that's supplementing that big purse they're giving. And that's it's one hand washes the other.
That's right.
You know, when it comes to that.
That's exactly right. It's a two-way street, and you have to be, again, going back to providing that value. You have to bring something to the table, because those organizers, those promoters, they're spending money for us to be there.
Yeah.
You know, they've got a water, power, you name it. They've got to provide all that. And so I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And that is, it is that two-way street, and you want to be able to at least, you know, help. You want to help them and help the town, like you talked about. Yeah.
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 And it is. And that's the thing, you know, we have a lot of great promoters with MBN that works with these festivals and lines things up, you know, like we do it's called the Delta Challenge. You know, it's a 4-part competition. It's Q on the Yazoo, Oktoberfest, Ruleville, and pig picking. Mm-hmm. Well, out of that, you know, the winner, they take the cumulative score, and whoever has the highest score this year won $10,000. Mm-hmm. And that was Team Rolling Bones, you know, husband and wife out of Rosedale, Mississippi. Awesome people. You know, had the pleasure of getting to know them this year and was very thankful, got to meet them. But, you know, I mean, and they won it off ribs. Yep. You know, so, I mean, they're 10 grand richer just because of cooking ribs and doing well in it. So it's things like that. These promoters, I mean, if anybody has ever been behind the scenes of planning one of these barbecue events, they would understand, you know, they start 6 months before that event, right? Of getting sponsors, getting the local businesses, getting everything, starting to plan, shutting the streets down, getting everything out there that's needed to make this thing happen. And when it's not successful, they don't do it next year. And then we don't have things to do. Well, then we don't have things to bring new teams in. So it's sometimes it seems like it's a hard battle, but I think it's going to get better. I really do.
Well, I love what you said earlier about the fact that, you know, yes, you can go out and you can get a 40 and 45 foot RV, and you can spend, you know, $20,000-$30,000 on smokers. I mean, if you want to go crazy with it, you absolutely can, but you don't have to. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I get from this conversation, especially if I'm a listener and I'm wanting to jump into this. You know, I can't emphasize this enough. You don't need to spend a lot of money to do this. You just need to get in the game. Just sign up. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's a lot of work, especially when you're cooking solo like you are. You know, we only had 2 guys on our team, plus my son, so 2.5. You know, it is a lot of work, but you know, you don't have to have all that stuff. I think the biggest thing for beginners is just sign up for a competition. Go around, shake some hands, introduce yourself. And actually, I would even argue that, or I would say that, you probably don't even have to go introduce yourself. I bet you that if you show up at a competition, most of the people there are going to know that you're somebody new, and you're probably going to have some folks, just like happened to us. You're going to have some folks that come over and say, hi, how you doing? You know, maybe you ought to think about doing this, that, and the other. So bottom line, I can't emphasize that enough. Like I said, is just sign up for a competition. Just get in there.
And that's one thing I do love about the MBN, and which of course I'm biased to it, but I will say the MBN is probably one of the most social and welcoming sanctions that you'll ever deal with. I've cooked under KCBS, I've cooked in other places and everything. And I mean, and it's, kind of like Michael with Boom Boom Q is, his motto is, if I've got, we've got.
Yep.
And that's kind of the way we all are with MBN is, I mean, and like you said, there's times you're able to talk to people, and it seems like there's a lot of times I'll get tickled as I'll be outside, like trying to change rack ribs out or get them ready to wrap and get them inside or something. And somebody will want to come up like, oh, well, what about that? I was like, I can't talk right now. I'm sorry, and I don't have anyone else there to kind of pass them off to talk to them. So they just think I'm being rude, but I'm not. I'm just trying to get in here. And the barbecue world, if you pull up out there in a truck and you pop a pop-up tent up and you get your little Weber griddle out, or back whatever you're cooking on, we're going to sit there and hey man, what you need? You forgot this? Hey, here, I got one right over here. Whatever. I mean, because we welcome new people. We and the thing is, the reason we welcome it is we want competition. Mm-hmm. We want something new to bring in to shake it up a little bit. So no, I mean, and even if guys, guys, ladies, whoever, if you're interested in getting into this, you ain't even got to cook in it. Just go start hanging out at some of these events and talk to some of the people. Ask them about that smoker. Ask them about how does it do? How does it run? How do you cook on it? Because when you get to that point and you want to buy a big cooker like that, you're going to spend some money. And you want to make sure that you know as much, you do as much research on it as you can. And these people will talk to you. They'll tell you what porks they're using, what rubs they're using, whatever. Because I can promise you there's some little secrets we're not going to tell of little things that we do that gives us that little edge. But for the most part, every one of us is doing the same thing in a way or another. We're all using the same rubs in one way or another. It's just those little tweaks that we've learned over the years that's setting us apart. So I mean, I encourage people just to, find a local barbecue event, go hang out, walk back there to teams. Don't be intimidated. Go back there, say hi. I guarantee you're going to leave there with a plate of food and a beer in your hand at some point. If you don't, then you need to get a joke book in your back pocket because you just got a non-welcoming, attitude or something. Because I've got so many people that calls me, text me that I've met along the way that, hey man, how's it going? Had fun? Are you coming back to this event this year? I'd love to hang out with you again. Just like next year when we come down to Pig Jig, I'm going to keep that same spot right there on the corner. So we'll all get together down there. I kind of know because that was my first Pig Jig, competing in it. So next year, hey, we're all going to get together and have a little bit more of a block party next year, really, really throw it down MBN style. So it's a lot of fun. It is. And I encourage people to get involved some way, somehow.
I love that. That is a very powerful way to wind down the show. And I'd reiterate what Dustin just said, and that is get involved somehow, go shake some hands, ask some questions, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And again, for our listeners, take some time, check out Dustin on his Facebook pages. Again, that's QUE and that's letter NDA 662. He's on Facebook and Instagram out of Coldwater, Mississippi. A wealth of information, as you can tell, very, very easy to talk to and willing to share. And as we wind down the show, one final question for you, Dustin, it really has to do with ribs, right? Because I know you talked earlier about ribs in your mind are more difficult than whole hog. So what words of advice do you have for the backyard cooker? the guy or the gal that's sitting here going, look, I don't want to really compete, but I want to be able to make the best ribs in my neighborhood, right? What words of wisdom can you share with the folks that are just trying to up their game in the backyard to make the best ribs on their block?
Honestly, keep it simple.
Mhm.
I mean, and I find myself like, I posted a picture on my Facebook the other night that I was going through all my spices, and I mean, my kitchen island, I had like 7 or 8 tubs of probably 200 or 300 different bottles of spices, and that's one of the things, me and buddy of mine was talking about the other night. It's almost like we think we're going to reinvent the wheel,
Mhm.
and just keep it simple. Find what works from you and get something that works, that you can do and works, and do small tweaks, because like I started, and this is how funny it is. I've done a KCBS contest first of the year, and one of the comment cards I got from one of the judges was unknown taste and unknown flavor.
Mhm.
And which I was in Illinois, and Memphis is more of a sweet heat.
That's right.
KCBS is almost like cotton candy. They love the sweet. So, and then I got another comment card of that, of unknown flavor. So I'm like, man, I done cleaned my smoker out. I thought I had a piece of plastic in there or something. And I cooked some ribs at a comp one day. I come home the next day, got them out, and it was too pungent with smoke. I had too much smoke on them. So and that's one thing I battled this year, was learning to, back my smoke down and how much smoke to put on it. I got that balanced, and then I tweaked with my flavor profiles. I mean, anything fruity, on ribs. You want fruits, apples, pecans, even in your rubs, and find you a good finishing dust, to where you can pop it on top of them, and that's going to set you apart on that and everything. So, the biggest thing is find a flavor profile that works for you, and just tweak it.
That's right.
And just tweak. Get your friends over, get your buddies over, and tell them like, hey man, I know these are free ribs, but I want some honest feedback. Are they good or not? Because anybody's going to get a free meal from you, they're going to tell it's good.
That's right.
But and I do that all the time. I mean, I get friends over, and I'll have 6 different racks over here and 6 pans, and I'm like, try a rib. Tell me write down what you think about this, because I always want to be better. So, and the second piece of advice I can give is, don't think you know it all.
Right.
Be willing to listen to somebody that, even if you don't know they're the greatest cook in the world, they just come up, listen to what they got to say.
That's right.
And if it makes a little bit of sense, try it once. If you mess it up, fine. You messed up the rack of ribs, throw them away, learn a lesson, so.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, and I try to take that, with life on anything, I mean, so, but no, yeah, just like I said, people, you got to get out there and do it. You got to start somewhere. And, I'm welcome. I welcome anybody to message me, if they have any questions, whatever. I am by no means a world champion, big time champion, whatever. But I am the type that if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. And if you want more, I'll just make something up. So
That's right. Well, that's a powerful way to wind down the show. And again, Dustin, we appreciate you coming on the show. Appreciate you sharing the insight and the wisdom. And thanks again for your time, sir.
Man, I appreciate you having me, and hopefully you can break away and come up here. If we get accepted for Memphis in May this year, maybe you can come up and visit with us, and we'll do a live podcast from there or something together.
That'd be fun for sure.
So, all right, Kurt, I appreciate it much, man.